Hey everybody, welcome to the TradeSafe office hours for February 24th, 2021. We should have some people joining the stream here, and what we're going to be talking about today is our product, and we'll talk a little bit about the evolution of our product, where we've come from, thought process around redesigns, a lot of different aspects that go into creating the product, how the product meshes in with our software and cloud platform, and how that fits into a broader landscape, as well as, what are the services and functionality that are going to be on the horizon that you can expect to be hearing a little bit more about soon. We're actually going to be revealing a little bit of new product, some conceptual stuff, some drawings, some CAD drawings, and we may even see some of the actual 3D printings and new moldings. So anyways, with that, I'll start getting kicked off with the introductions, and just say thanks everyone for joining today. Really appreciate it. So we've got myself, Wayne Lloyd, CEO of TradeSafe Inc. Dennis Kwan is the CEO of TradeSafe Technologies, and Dennis is really driving product and hardware and engineering side, and so he'll be able to speak really in detail about the engineering and a lot of what goes into the hardware, making usable devices that can be scaled up to mass market production. And then we've got Lawrence Kwok, and Lawrence is our product designer. So Lawrence worked a lot on the ideation, giving deep consideration to usability and wearability and all these things that go hand in hand with the engineering and product. So welcome, guys. Thanks for joining. I'm really interested and looking forward to chatting about the product here. So we can probably jump into the first slide. Yeah, so here, I've covered a little bit of this, but yeah, product, how do we get to, a finished product? It's a long process, and, there's a lot of product ideation that goes on, which is just thinking about how the product's going to be used in the real world. Getting user input, talking to people that are going to use the product, talk to people that have used previous generations of the product, see where there was any shortfalls or missing features or things that they wish the product did, or even sometimes you see use cases that you didn't expect when you designed the product at first. You see the products being used in unexpected ways. So really talking to the users about what they expect, how they're going to use it, and gather all that information. And you move to the design process, and that is obviously a very iterative process, because you're trying to distill all that information into cohesive design that takes into account as many of those features and functions as you can. And then designing the software. How does that device talk to the software? Designing the hardware. Actually building the hardware and getting into the engineering part. Around the electronics, power management, battery life, chip performance. These are super complicated devices, even though they're sometimes they seem like they do quite simple things. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And then we'll talk about our future focus here around what our products are really enabling. There's a lot of discussion around the impact of COVID and how that's it is driving our sales, and it's getting products into the market. That's really about a deployment strategy, and how do we take that deployment strategy, make sure that we've built a product that can have many use cases down the road. So this is a super interesting and very, very, very cool topic of conversation that we'll be interested in getting into. So Lawrence, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the product ideation phase. How do you get, how do you talk to the users? How do you think about the wearable? How do you, get into practical settings? Really, maybe give us a few minutes and walk through the process and how you were thinking about this in terms of the TraceSafe product in general.
Sure. Thanks, Wayne. Lovely to be here. Yeah, when it comes to, this whole idea of a wearable contact tracing beacon, coming in and evaluating the existing product, what are its strengths, what are the objectives that we want to be able to preserve and move forward with momentum. Just to break down some of the basic objectives that, I gleaned from talking with everyone at TraceSafe, anyone who has experience with the product, and it's kind of exploring its use cases. Obviously it has to be externally worn. It's got to be easy to use and wear. It's, not a smartwatch. It's its own product category. And, it's this interesting product that spends most of its time passive and quiet. And it does spend a certain amount of time being active, giving the user kind of feedback. And so taking those kind of basic objectives, I get to do the fun, imaginative part of, running out into the field and looking at different industries that make use of some aspect, of wearable technologies. And so, areas of research where, for me, things like cycling, smartphone accessories, action cameras, looking at like where's the visual language and familiarity with consumers and consumer products. Do people know how to wear these things? Do people know how to use them? And in what ways, what are the more popular, low-hanging affordances? And it was really important to think about affordances because those are the first bits of contact that people will have when it comes to interacting with a new product. So you're looking at wearable opportunities. And, alongside of those wearable opportunities, the design has to be robust in the sense of it's got to give you confidence that you can trust it and stop thinking about it. And ultimately, that's going to be reinforced by usability, the psychology of the use, the human factors, the ergonomics. And for me, the emphasis on affordances was really driven by this idea of contact tracing and physical distancing. That kind of comes a little bit from gleaning like research, like public health research on like mask wearing, because really at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to ask people how they would prefer to do something as opposed to if they would prefer to do something. So, that idea is really driving the kind of hardware form factor. How would you like to wear this beacon? How would you like a contact tracing product to be worn on the body? And so, that you can see from some of these photos, that I'm scouring the internet for them or going on field trips or doing prototyping. You can see bike lights, you can see smartphone mounting accessories and charging solutions. You've even got there like a wristband that's made of paracord. It's kind of like a, more like a homemade solution. And then on the right, there's some 3D printing of basic accessories, wristband, lanyard, clip. And when you look at the bottom right image there, that's a really interesting, for me, like a proof of concept when it came to, what it meant to have a contact tracing wearable light up and give you that first bit of feedback, because otherwise it's quite an inert object that you really just want it to be easy to wear. But that first sense of like, awareness of what the device is trying to tell you from a user's perspective, the user's probably not going to be thinking about the entire system or platform. So it's really about focusing the feedback into a very like singular and easy to understand kind of bit of information.
Yeah, and Lawrence, is it fair to say, just based on these images and what you're talking about, is that, the start of the process is really thinking about how it's used and then going out and sort of scouring the whole world and not really being closed off to any ideas, but just taking in all these different concepts and trying to figure out what you can use and what you can't use. It's really an information gathering session.
Absolutely. I have with me, actually, I laid out everything in front of me as far as like every little bit and bob that I went and bought and tried on. And, you do a lot of role play, you do a lot of imagination, and it's very, in the design world, we call that speculative work, so doing speculative design is really about putting on your imagination hat and trying that out with other people. So, if it's role playing a scenario, if it's interviewing a user, giving someone a prop to work with, regardless of what kind of device it is, it's really about trying to imagine it as another device. And it was really important to do that because obviously, as we know, contact tracing is something that's really new to the world as far as just kind of our broad culture. And it's up to kind of the tech gurus and the early adopters of the world to really signal like how we should understand these devices.
Yeah, interesting. So, and I think it's fair to say, you start with a blank canvas because TradeSafe as a company, the main thing is that we're developing all this stuff from scratch. We're developing our own PCB boards. We're developing our own plastic. We're not trying to fit a use case into a device per se. We really have everything, as a blank slate when we're starting from design because we're building the tech from the ground up.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me as a designer, it's an amazing opportunity to think about a completely new type of product and to think about the longevity of it and kind of how that visual language evolves over time and is associated with the brand TradeSafe. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's click over to the other slide, and this will be the first look at our newest wearable device. Maybe Lawrence, just kind of walk us through some of the high level points.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, it's important to just maintain a certain simplicity and relatability. And so hence, a lot of what anyone who has ever seen or interacted with a Bluetooth beacon, there's a lot of familiarity around this circular form factor. Mm-hmm. But, when we break down the actual hardware and we're trying to create a piece of hardware that, while very sophisticated, communicates something very simply. And so, just to break into kind of design language, the design language of this beacon is really simple. You can think of it like a cookie. It's got a top layer, a middle layer, and a bottom layer. And the top layer is all about branding and communication. So obviously, the beacon's going to perform in all these different domains, and it's important to kind of have that first aspect of visual communication. The middle layer is all the brains. It's all the hardware, and it's what's working in the background, and it's kind of it's the core. And the bottom layer is all about the user. So the bottom layer is all about the feedback. The lighting, the sound, the charging, the mounting. So this is the area in which the user is kind of going to be consulting with the device. And the reason why that layer is on the bottom layer is, like, as I said before, the device spends most of its time passive in terms of it's being worn. We expect it to kind of recede into the background. We expect to be able to trust it. But the second it comes on, that trust is being put to the test. And so consolidating all of your feedback into that bottom layer is kind of like saying, in a soft way, we've got your back. You can trust the technology to do what it needs to do. But otherwise, it's very it's kind of a no-brainer. And with respect to kind of trying to reinforce that trust, that's where you can kind of see the accessories on the side becoming this really wonderful opportunity for users to have a say in how they would prefer to be wearing these devices. And it's not just for the users, but it's also for clients of TradeSafe as well, being able to provide their users specifically. So my background being in assistive technology and inclusive design, having to design for people with disabilities, is not that much different than a challenge like this, where you're looking for wearable opportunities, affordances on the body that work best for the single user case.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a form factor that effectively can be worn on the body, and I think you've got one just around your collar there.
Yeah, it's an early prototype.
Yeah, you can wear it as a pendant. You can wear it as a wrist strap, and each one of those things, there's little trade-offs around what you can and can't do with it, and how it sort of integrates into what you're doing. In addition to that, we're integrating these devices into hard hats, safety equipment, and so on. So this is really a hyper versatile device that has a lot of technology packed in, and I think we'll get to Dennis in a second to really talk about some of the deep technology advancements and how all that kind of road that we've been on for years here is really helping push these devices forward. So I think we can probably jump into the next slide here, which is, I'll just quickly chat about and then start turning it over to Dennis. The interesting thing about our product is it's not just a wearable device. This is a wearable device that's connected. It's connected to the cloud, and we have this dashboard that's a central hub for the administrators to understand exactly what's going on in their workplace. And this is a dashboard that's going to start to grow over time with new products and services that these wearables enable. So this could be insights around obviously the main one is being health and safety and contact tracing, but the other one could be health and safety more focused on employee wellness and workplace health characteristics that employees are interested in. It could be something that really links to workplace engagement, pure safety considerations, like safety equipment, compliance, and then in addition to that, potentially productivity statistics here. So this is something where workplace can deploy these wearables, and the wearables over time will add new functionality that's viewable through this dashboard. And that functionality is all pushed by our cloud solution. The cloud solution is really the bedrock foundation of everything we do at TradeSafe. Very very fundamental to enabling everything that we see from the wearable and how it interacts with the cloud, all the way to future functionality. So really want to focus the fact that although we are developing new hardware solutions, those new hardware solutions are really in service to the software. And I think that's a really important thing, because the software is what's going to be driving a lot of the activity. It's how, every individual wearable is an individual wearable, but when you have the software kind of acts as a glue and as a connective tissue to link everything together. So it's such a vital part of the offering. And so now we'll get Dennis to talk a little bit about the hardware engineering. And Dennis is obviously leading our product charge. And at the end of the day, everything is sort of being filtered through his many decades of experience designing products and sort of engineering those things for mass market. And so Dennis, maybe talk a little bit about, I mean, I'll let you take it wherever you want to take it, but
Okay.
you've got big, battery, you've got chips, you've got custom PCB. I mean, where would you like to start?
Yeah, we can start from this piece of hardware first. Thanks, Wayne and Lawrence. So I think I'm going to go into a bit of the details here, and if we have time and if there are other questions, I can even share my screen and show some of this actual design flow and the nitty-gritty of how we come to a design like this. But essentially, we start with it's very important as Lawrence has laid out earlier, that the design is driven top down and not kind of from the guts outwards. It's important for us to define the shape and size and the form factor, define the whole system, right, from the software perspective, what we want to achieve, how many users can we support, all that kind of things. And then we design the guts that is going to support that and support that very well. Right. The main challenge of any portable, any wearable device is actually power consumption, because power consumption up to today, right, is very much like dominated by battery size, so we want to minimize that, reduce the amount of or reduce the number of charges that you need to do per day or whatever, okay, per week or whatever. Given a certain size, we have to design, choose the right parts that go in there, fulfill all the functions. So here we are showing our next generation product, which is a button, what we call a button tag. Inside this button tag, obviously, we need to fit in Bluetooth, right, for communications, for contact tracing, for all the wireless functions, actually. And we also need to put in a motion sensor because we want to be able to capture motion activity and provide other functions beyond contact tracing. We also have to provide vibrate motor so that we can generate alerts, LEDs, and even a small little buzzer. Right, all this has to fit into this size of around 40 mm by diameter by 8 millimeter thick. Okay, so it's actually a very small thing, a little, actually smaller than most cookies. Okay. And to achieve that, it's not just hardware design. Actually, like it is, as I said earlier, we're driving everything from the top down. So that allows us to actually do a lot of trade-offs between hardware and software functions, and to achieve good power consumption, but also achieve good performance in terms of, for example, the data latency for uploading data to our cloud. So given all that trade-offs, we have a team of software cloud engineers and firmware embedded software engineers, as well as hardware engineers, all working together and go through many iterations of design and finalize on component selection and how the components interact with each other to provide this complete solution that can work well in the field. So this is not the first contact tracing product that we have designed. It has, taken in a lot of the experience, a lot of the important lessons that we've learned, feedback from customers that allow us to arrive at what we believe to be an optimal choice of hardware components, together with how they work together, as well as how we implement the firmware for controlling the entire operation. So this is like a little mini computer in a small little cookie form factor all by itself. The battery typically would last more than 2 weeks. That's our design spec. And it will take about 2 to 3 hours to charge. And it has motion sensor, as I said earlier. The motion sensor is extremely low power. It has also an AI, a machine learning engine built in, so it can be used to recognize, for example, some hand gestures or some other activities. So we see this as a platform, not just for contact tracing, for sure. It is a platform for us to go well into the future for many different applications, location, for activity monitoring, health and safety, a lot of flexibilities built into this platform.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about the platform is, the extensibility from both a radio perspective. So, a lot of the wireless equipment in here is sort of we've built for the future. So there's going to be, radios and beaconing capabilities that will be able to extend to payments and other functionality that's going to be critical to businesses in a post-pandemic world. And then there's also, as you mentioned, motion sensor, accelerometer, essentially mini computer built into every unit that's AI capable, that's going to be able to understand motion and be able to create a rich data landscape for users to sort of understand what's going on in various environments. The primary things that we're looking at, I think, is in the hospitality business. This can become kind of like a super key, or like your one-stop device, your unified device, where it'll be doing some contact tracing for you, but also be doing, connected to potentially your room, access controls, your doors. It will be sort of connected to, food and beverage, being able to order and do things based on your location around a ship or some other thing. And there's really like no limit to what we can do here, and this is something that is going to make for a much better experience for guests in the hospitality segment. And then when you move on to the enterprise side, you have something that's very similar concept. You have this health and safety wearable that's applicable for contact tracing and other things, but you're additionally surfacing a lot of interesting data about what's going on in a given workforce, any sort of safety things that it could uncover. So there's a lot built into this product. I think we'll talk a lot more about that, that functionality in the future as we unveil it. But it's safe to say that this product is really future-proof and something that's going to serve us for a long time for many, many, many other applications other than contact tracing. Okay, so I think before we jump into questions here, we can really talk about, a little bit more of this future focus. We talked about in the enterprise, this connected worker strategy. The connected worker strategy is really, built around, a wearable being the centerpiece of a connected worker environment, that sort of future of work discussion. And then additional location-aware devices or proximity-based devices that are attached to other equipment, either heavy equipment or kind of key assets in a workplace, so you can understand how employees, visitors, other people are interacting with components of a work environment and tools inside of a work environment. So, in Singapore, we're already seeing this being used as a way to kind of keep people safely aware of their surroundings when it comes to heavy equipment. So we're putting asset tracking devices on top of heavy excavation equipment or loaders or cranes as a way to keep people aware of what's going on. That's a key thing. So we really see, I mean, Deloitte has talked a lot about this future of work strategy, wearables in the workplace, very interesting future. They see this as, you know, a $60 billion plus industry. And so we're really delivering on that. Now, I think we've delivered to, you know, probably one of the bigger orders in the world, which was 60,000 units into, you know, a large multinational company that's a tier 1 semiconductor manufacturer. Dennis, maybe talk a little bit about the logistics of kind of delivering on a project like that, and what's involved, and how, you know, hardware design and systems and software and, you know, overall capability for throughput can really play a part.
Yeah, in this COVID age, everybody is in a rush, right? So we actually started this engagement with the particular customer back in only in November, and we started shipping products in December. Within 2 or 3 months, we shipped more than 50,000 units of the previous generation, which is what we call the clip, right? It basically looks like this. This is like a little device that you can hang on your lanyard and so on. Quite apart from, you know, kind of the logistics of getting 50,000 units out of production within, you know, a month or two, and ship out and getting it deployed, installed. There's also a lot of like customer support training needed, because this is a brand new product that none of their IT guys have experience with. And as I said earlier, this is a complete system product. So we provide gateways that have to be deployed on their site. And this is a semiconductor manufacturer, so it goes into their fabs, it goes into their warehouses, factory, offices, and everywhere. We learned a lot in terms of deploying these gateways in places where it can have maximum capture of all the employee traffic, right? So that we can see all the employee tags uploading data through these gateways, right? The contact tracing records through the gateways consistently. And also, we were able to actually do firmware update halfway through this deployment, right? Or, you know, after we almost completed deployment, we decided that, you know, it is good to update all the firmware so that for us to improve performance, right? Battery life and all that, and accuracy too. So we did the firmware update of 50,000 units, and I think that has to be pretty historical for any devices in such a short time. All 50,000 devices within a week. Each of these devices can do a firmware update within 3 or 4 seconds. Okay, so it happens transparently in the background. Nobody knows about it. Well, the employees, most of them don't know, except the IT guys. Of course, we told them that there's a firmware update, but the process is such that, like, it just transparently does it, right? Whenever I am within the vicinity or coverage area of a gateway, then this tag will make a connection if it has data, and after it has uploaded data, it will check whether it needs a firmware update. And if it does, it takes 3 or 4 seconds more to update the firmware here. So that's the kind of power of this IoT platform. There's a lot of nitty-gritty, there's a lot of technologies, quite apart from the core function of doing contact tracing, that has to be there to support a major deployment, you know, like this. Those are the challenges that are not obvious to most people. And there are a lot of products out there which are just, you know, kind of like modified from a smartwatch, and they would be able to do demos and stuff, but for sure, you know, when there are real kind of in any real deployment problems like that, uploading data, making sure that all the data is consistent and is accurate. All these are challenges that we went through. And with this company, they actually had a whole team reviewing our data every day. So it's going well. We're going into China next, and Taiwan and the Japan locations.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's really sort of like the Tesla software updates that happen for the cars. It's basically just an over-the-air update. The user doesn't have to do anything. They don't have to say, hey, I need to upgrade from version 5.1 to 5.2. This is something that happens in the background, where TradeSafe is really driving the features and functionality in concert with the client. And then maybe just quickly, we'll get into Q&A in about 1 minute here, but maybe just quickly talk about the overall, how this major customer has really pushed us on from a technological perspective to really improve the throughput on the cloud. And I know we're going to talk about this. This is actually a major achievement. We're going to talk about this in a release, talk about sort of our cloud capabilities, because I think people need to know this is not just a wearables company. This is a deep software technology company running a very complicated cloud product that is going to be, highly monetizable. So maybe just talk through about that, some of those throughput breakthroughs that we've been making recently.
Right. So the throughput problem is like we have gateways like this, right? Just a small little black box like this, which are installed like in reception area, in places where the employees are supposed to hang out longer. And when you're dealing with maybe like the 1C, 2C's employees, small company, or even a few hundreds, right, of employees, you don't see as much problem because like the employee typically would be still fairly concentrated in a single office location, and then just maybe 3 or 4 gateways kind of dotted around the place will provide enough coverage. So only when you have literally thousands of employees all wearing tags, then you start to see, okay, how come certain employees don't have data for a few days, and the upload is not very timely. So that relates to like how we can implement a protocol where the devices, the tags, can communicate with the gateway in such a way that they share the bandwidth efficiently, right? Share the time efficiently, so that like when you have 100 of these tags around a gateway, the gateways jump from one to another very quickly without wasting time and without the device clashing with each other and wasting bandwidth. So those are the improvements. Those are some of these wireless protocol challenges and improvements that you won't see until you really deploy a system. I mean, we did a lot of design work upfront. We try to kind of anticipate situations like that. But the best test is kind of real life testing, real life scenarios. So we went through maybe very intensive 2 or 3 weeks of system level optimization of different parameters. And as I said, we did a firmware update, right, over the air, OTA update of all the devices and also the gateways to achieve these performance improvements.
Yeah, it's really amazing, like the job that the technology team, the hardware team, the software team, and everybody inside of TradeSafe is doing. It's really impressive to see the progress that's being made, and the fact that our product is being able to be deployed at such mass scale. That's it's really impressive what your team has done. So amazing job there. So I think I'll just open it up for Q&A now. That kind of gets to, hopefully it was a nice overview of what we're doing as far as our product and the way we think about some of these things. I've seen not too many questions today. There was a question about synergies and integrations with other AI and machine learning platforms. I think we're really focused on our offering right now and how we can use AI and ML. It's funny, we were just in a meeting about this earlier today, how we can use these technologies to solve the core problems that our customers have that we see and hear about on an ongoing basis. So, as Dennis said, we start everything from the customer needs, moving on down. And we're really careful not to try to, create a solution in search of a problem. And so we're working really closely because we're doing these massive deployments, because we have visibility and, into some of these partnerships. It really gives us sort of insight into how people are thinking about these issues and where TradeSafe is uniquely positioned to build functionality that would be addressing these core problems. So, there are obviously great partnerships and other technologies out there. We think as TradeSafe, with the sales pipeline we've built, the partnerships and the customers we have, we think we have an unfair advantage over pretty much anybody else in the market because no one's doing massive corporate deployments. No one's doing massive hospitality and resort deployments like we are. And so we really want to keep that information as close to ourselves as possible to make our product the best it can possibly be. So sales and marketing, where are your primary target group of customers focused on a daily basis? That's a great question for Gord, our Chief Revenue Officer. I want to keep us on a product discussion today, but our next office hours is going to be centered around privacy. And then I think the one after that will be a revenue discussion and a sales opportunity discussion. I know that there's a real strategy around winning some of these bigger accounts, talking to the customers that have budget for this type of product, and closing them on fast engineering cycles, working very quickly to address concerns and particular functionality that's unique to them, integrating. I think the deep thing that we're thinking about now is really on the integration side, making sure that we have a smooth, frictionless transition into these enterprises through those integration points, whether that's HR or other management services that they already use. But I think that's a deeper question, and that I'd want Gord Zielstra to talk about. Revenue growth rate still 100% quarter over quarter. Yeah, I mean our revenue, our growth rate has not changed, and the delay for the Airbnb RTO, I don't think there's a delay. I mean, I think we had a timeline for a definitive agreement, and the Airbnb transaction is quite complex. It's going to be a larger scale deal, so there's a lot of intricacies around that. I think it's on track and on target, so I don't want to position it as being delayed. The Airbnb deal will come out, and I think everyone will be quite pleased with the result there. Any update on financials? We're trying to get our financials out as soon as possible, working with Alan, our CFO, to get those out as soon as humanly possible. Any possibility we see an indefinitely powered kinetic charging wearable device? Yeah, I mean, is that Atmosic has some of that functionality built in. Dennis, did you want to talk about some of that kinetic stuff around the chip?
I mean, that's always an interesting area for us to consider, because our device, the chip that we use, is the lowest power Bluetooth low energy chip in the market. And we believe, the way we wrote the firmware, we control everything, is also achieving the best, power consumption by far. So it is completely possible to actually do, energy harvesting, whether it's kinetic, solar, or some other forms. It's just how much you want to do in the device, right? In the minimal case of just doing contact tracing, actually contact tracing is quite challenging because contact tracing requires the chip to be receiving a lot of the time, right? And receiving is does consume a lot of power. So even with our scheme, kinetic charging might still be a challenge. It depends on kind of what kind of kinetic energy you are able to harvest. If it's just somebody wearing it, maybe not a lot of like use cases can do it. You can probably power just a beacon alone, right? Allowing us to maybe track the device, but maybe not so much contact tracing. So there are a lot of things that is in the works, and you should be seeing some of our new products with very interesting new features like this.
Yeah. And then any update on working with senior living homes? Yeah, I mean, we have open dialogues with all of those customers. And I think we talked about it before a little bit around just the fact that those guys, from a budget perspective and from other considerations around their business and sort of everything, they seem like they'd be obvious great use cases, but their sales cycle, the way their annual budgets are structured, and the overall financial health of those organizations can make it a little bit challenging to kind of deliver product on the cadence that a company like ours is used to growing. So, we like these. We like going after the high growth opportunities, the places that are ready to execute and move fast to keep our growth rate up. So, I think that if this was a private company that was focused, exclusively on nurturing those types of relationships for a very, very, very long cycle payback, I think that might be an appropriate strategy. But as a public company and as a tech company that's working hard to sort of deliver this product to as many users as fast as we possibly can, those types of patients are not optimal. Although we are totally focused on working with them on their time frame and keep dialogues open and keep working with them, because we do want to be delivering solutions that have the highest impact to the most in-need people. And those guys are really suffering right now. So we do keep the dialogue open, and we are reaching out to those guys constantly, but we're also cognizant of their timeliness and their ability to move with regards to sort of just the general nature of their business and their budget structures. So thanks for that, Steve. Well, I think we're at 45 minutes, just coming up on an hour. So I do want to be cognizant of people's time. I have answered most of the questions, or all of the questions in the chat. I really want to thank everybody for joining in and listening to the presentation and learning a little bit about the product. I want to say thanks to Dennis for sharing a little bit of his time, and Lawrence also for sharing some insight on what we're doing and how we think about the product. And hopefully that's giving you some insight. These products are going to be launching probably in the next near term. And so this has been our first sneak peek of what they look like and how we've thought about them and everything else. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and thanks again to Dennis and Lawrence for coming on to speak with us today. And we will talk to you guys in the next office hours very soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you all.